Apart from myself, the entire school can hear the innermost thoughts of the little princess from the capital. At the commendation ceremony for the top student in our grade, I had just received the certificate of honor from the principal's hands. The little princess sighed and shook her head, pondering whether she should expose the matter of her cheating. The principal still intends to send her to the provincial competition, and if she were to secure the last place, our school's ranking would plummet. The principal announced on the spot that my achievements were nullified, resulting in my disqualification from the provincial competition, and I found myself ostracized by my classmates. Thus, when the class funds mysteriously vanished, the first person everyone suspected was me. Just as my classmates wavered in their decisions, the little princess was internally tormented, grappling with her thoughts. In truth, it was Lin Jiejie who had taken the money. Her family is impoverished, making the act seem justifiable. Perhaps I should just cover the class funds myself. The class monitor, having overheard her thoughts, directly snatched the 2,000 yuan I intended to use for my mother's surgery from my backpack. I cried out in desperation to clarify my innocence, yet not a single person chose to believe me. Having lost the funds for my surgery, I was left with no choice but to skip classes and take up work.
Consequently,
I found myself being followed by a group of delinquents. Just as I was about to cry out for help from my classmates, the little princess in my mind began to voice her disdain. Here she is, engaged in a romance with those ruffians, treating us merely as a part of her little game. How scandalous. My classmates, poised to intervene, turned their backs and walked away. In the midst of my escape, I slipped and fell into a river. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the time when I had ranked first in my grade. This time, I could distinctly hear the thoughts of the little princess. 1. Today, during our speech under the national flag, we commended Lin Jiejie from class 1 of the second year for achieving the highest score in the recent monthly examination, pulling ahead of the second place by 30 points. The applause thundered, resonating with my inner excitement as I ascended the podium. Yet, alongside this, an incongruous voice pierced through. I really envy Lin Jiejie. She can just copy and still come in first. I should have reported her during the exam. Should I expose her cheating? The principal even wants to send her to compete at the provincial level. Imagine if she ends up last. Our school will be at the bottom of the rankings. Never mind. I heard she is from a poor background. What if people accuse me of looking down on the less fortunate? I would truly be sorry for the principal, bringing disgrace to the provincial city. Just as her thoughts faded, the applause abruptly ceased. Students and faculty alike, including the principal on stage, fixed their scrutinizing gazes upon me. I recognized the source of the voice all too well. It was Shun Yiwei, who had transferred from the prestigious Capital Aristocratic Academy to our public high school. Dubbed the Little Princess of the Capital, her father was the richest man in the country, and her mother a renowned ballet dancer. Strangely, I hadn't seen her lips move. Where was that voice emanating from? As I pondered, Shun Yiwei's voice resonated once more. I heard that some officials are inspecting the school today. Perhaps they will designate Lin Jiejie to participate in the competition, which could tarnish not only the principal's reputation but also that of the Education Bureau. Oh, why has everyone stopped applauding? I was merely voicing my thoughts internally, not speaking them out loud. It dawned on me that these were Shun Yiwei's inner musings. The principal's expression shifted dramatically, his face paling as he approached me. Snatching the certificate from my hands, I hereby declare that Lin Jiejie has cheated in the examination, possessing unauthorized materials, and her scores are rendered void.
2.
In my previous life, I could not hear Shun Yiwei's thoughts, remaining utterly oblivious to what transpired. However, my mind was still somewhat agile, prompting me to request the principal to review the surveillance footage. Innocent as I was, I had nothing to fear from scrutiny. Yet, to my dismay, the examination footage was inexplicably missing. It was my homeroom teacher who swore on her teaching career to plead for a second chance for me. However, on the day of the retest, I accidentally consumed expired fruit, resulting in frequent trips to the restroom throughout the exam. Ultimately, I was left exhausted, and my scores were dismal. The principal became even more convinced that my top position was the result of cheating, directly granting Shun Yiwei my qualification for the provincial competition. In this rebirth, I found myself at a loss for a way to extricate myself from this predicament. Even if I called the police without the footage, there was nothing to be done. What could I say? Forget it. I was weary of struggling. In front of the gathered crowd, I seized the microphone. The principal is correct. My first place was indeed due to cheating. Gasps echoed across the playground as my classmates reacted in astonishment. Did she really admit to cheating? How audacious. Thinking she could get away with it just because she was from a poor family. How shameless. If I were Lin Jiejia, I would have withdrawn by now. Even Shen Yiwei wore a shocked expression, seemingly unprepared for my admission. As the murmurs escalated, I continued. Yes, yes. All 6 years of my primary school first places were achieved through copying. All 3 years of middle school were the same, and now in high school, I've continued to copy, securing first place for 2 consecutive years. So, dear classmates, reflect on this. Why is it that your diligent studying cannot surpass my plagiarism? Is it that you cannot outshine me? 3. A deathly silence enveloped the more than 3,000 students. Perhaps they had seen arrogance before, but nothing like the boldness I displayed. Once they regained their composure, the playground erupted. How could she be so brazen about her cheating? But wait. Cheating once might be a coincidence. Cheating for 7 or 8 years. Were the invigilators blind? The key point was that Lin Jiejia's scores had always been stable. Not indicative of cheating at all. The principal, utterly flabbergasted, was newly appointed and had yet to familiarize himself with the students. Hearing Shen Yiwei's thoughts, and fearing for the school's reputation, he hastily announced the cheating verdict. I felt no desire to survive. Facing the principal with unvarnished honesty, if a student like me could cheat under your very nose for 2 consecutive years, then the invigilators bear an undeniable responsibility. How about this? Expel me, and dismiss those who dare to invigilate without proper vigilance. Let us see who would dare to cheat again. The principal remained silent, but the invigilators were unable to sit idly by. Lin Jiejia did not cheat. Her peers scored lower than her. She must have lost her mind to cheat. Indeed. How could one cheat and still maintain a 30-point lead over the second place? Principal, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. The principal's complexion fluctuated between shades of blue and white, regretting his credulity towards the students' thoughts. He hastily attempted to rectify the situation. This matter will be reevaluated once I have reviewed the surveillance footage. Just as I was on the verge of liberation, Shen Yiwei's voice echoed once more. Alas, the principal is truly naive. The footage has already been deliberately destroyed by Lin Jiejia, rendering any investigation futile. And who says cheating only involves copying a classmate's paper? With the right connections, one can procure exam content in advance from forums and seek solutions online. Don't be surprised if one scores 680 or even 750 effortlessly. 4. The principal directed his doubtful gaze towards me once again. Yet, he dared not hastily reach a conclusion. Instead, he made a decision that sent waves of panic through the student body. I hereby announce that all students are to remain on the playground and refrain from moving. We will conduct a comprehensive confiscation of phones. Let us see who dares to bring a phone to school or purchase exam content in advance. Once verified, immediate expulsion will ensue. Shen Yiwei's face drained of color in an instant. Students began to shout in fear. I believe Lin Jiejia did not cheat. Do not search our phones. We brought nothing with us. Exactly. We never suspected our classmate of cheating. Why should we bear the consequences? With that, the entire student body cast resentful glances towards Shen Yiwei. If it weren't for her, the principal would not have initiated a phone search. Shen Yiwei found herself at a loss for words. If she spoke, it would signify that she was aware her classmates could hear her thoughts. But remaining silent would implicate her as the one responsible for the collective ostracism of the entire school. The principal scoffed. High school students ought to embody the spirit of high school. If they do not study diligently and instead squander their time on phones, I will be the first to notify their parents. Soon, a massive search operation commenced. All teachers wielded metal detectors, sweeping them over the students. Some homeroom teachers took detectors to search the empty classrooms. Dormitories became a primary target, leaving no corner unchecked. As a result, the morning self-study session was missed, and over 500 phones were confiscated from the entire school. The principal, showing some humanity, allowed students to write their names, promising they could retrieve their phones upon graduation. However, not a single one of those 500 phones belonged to me. Before dismissing the assembly, I offered an apologetic smile to my classmates. I'm sorry, but I must disappoint you all. I can't afford a phone. My village doesn't even have internet access. As the students dispersed, the principal specifically called out to Shen Yiwei, Student, in the future, Please refrain from making baseless accusations against others without concrete evidence. It is a most reprehensible behavior. Shen Iwei blinked her innocent eyes. Principal, I do not comprehend what you are implying. I said nothing. How could I be accused of wronging others? You were the one who suddenly declared that certain students had cheated. The principal struggled to explain this supernatural phenomenon and could only swallow his bitterness in silence. 5. Following this incident, students harbored some resentment toward Shen Iwei. When the principal reviewed the surveillance footage, he discovered it had been deliberately destroyed. However, he no longer easily trusted Shen Iwei's thoughts. Instead, he proactively organized a large-scale examination. Just days after the exams, another one loomed on the horizon, leaving many students filled with resentment. Shen Iwei was particularly flustered, voicing her discontent repeatedly. Lin Jiejie cheated. Why should we be implicated in a retake? Shouldn't she take the exam on her own? The students, weary both physically and mentally, couldn't help but agree. However, the homeroom teacher sternly interjected. Until the matter is thoroughly investigated, we cannot label Lin Jiejie as a cheater. Please refrain from unjustly accusing your classmates. Moreover, do you think I am unaware of you bringing your phones? I have turned a blind eye in the past. But I never imagined you would dare to resort to forums to purchase answers. Even if cheating were proven, none of you would escape unscathed. Now, clear your desks immediately. The exam will commence in 30 minutes. The students, intimidated by the teacher's authority, hastily prepared the examination room. Only Shen Iwei's complexion turned pale. She excused herself to the restroom, her purpose unclear. It was only a minute before the exam began that she returned, looking troubled. Exams, the principal's ultimate weapon. Some questions I could solve with my eyes closed. Soon, I submitted my paper. After finishing the Chinese exam during lunch, I had just laid my head on the desk for a quick nap when the homeroom teacher called me outside. Lin Jiejie, your grandmother sent you some fruit. In my previous life, I had no doubt I would consume it, only to end up with severe consequences. My grandmother, feeling guilty after I became ill, rushed to the school gate to buy apples, believing she had struck a bargain at 1 yuan per pound. She thought she was being thrifty, purchasing 10 pounds for the homeroom teacher to deliver to me, unaware that it would lead to my failing the exam and being accused of cheating. Heartbroken, she fell into deep sorrow and soon passed away. Reflecting on it now, how could there suddenly be a fruit sale at the school gate? Turning around, I met Shen Iwei's eager smile and instantly realized who the instigator was. Just as the evil queen in Snow White had crafted a poisoned apple, so too had Shen Iwei orchestrated her own version of deceit. As she gleefully anticipated my consumption of the fruit, I began distributing the apples to my classmates. Everyone, these are fresh apples my grandmother bought at the school gate, just 1 yuan per pound. Please enjoy them for free, and may we all pass the math exam this afternoon. Shen Iwei was taken aback, unable to comprehend why I was deviating from the expected script. Yet, in the next moment, she recognized this as a golden opportunity to sway public opinion. She quickly concocted a smear campaign. I just saw Lin Jiejie washing the apples with toilet water. I can't believe she would try to make all of us sick just to claim the top spot. I must stand up and intervene. But what can I say to make my classmates believe me? The students hesitated again. Having lost their phones that morning, they were understandably wary of trusting this sudden outburst. Finally, the class monitor could no longer contain herself and openly questioned, Lin Jiejie, where did you wash the apples? I shook my head. I didn't wash them. I'm eating them straight. If they're unclean, I'd be sick by now. All eyes turned to Shen Iwei. The class monitor bluntly stated, Shen Iwei, you claim these apples were washed with toilet water. Do you have any evidence? Shen Iwei feigned calmness. What are you talking about? I didn't say anything just now. However, once a secret is revealed, it tends to escape uncontrollably. Nonsense. I clearly heard you say these apples were washed with toilet water. Soon, one by one, countless classmates stood up to support the monitor's assertion. Everyone was no fool. Suddenly emerging voices raised suspicion. Shen Iwei stubbornly refused to relent. Having observed the commotion long enough, I approached Shen Iwei with an apple in hand. Oh dear, we are all classmates. What is this commotion? I didn't hear anything. Come, Shen Iwei, have an apple. Shen Iwei, frightened, recoiled repeatedly. I want to eat it. Keep it away from me. Rest assured, this apple was bought from a vendor at the school gate. It's not poisoned. If you don't believe me, I'll eat it in front of you. With a crunch, I took a bite and chewed. This only further solidified my classmates' doubts about the mysterious voice. If the apples had truly been washed with toilet water, how could I eat one? It was evident she was deliberately trying to frame me. Exactly. How malicious. Unless you eat one, we want to believe that voice isn't here doing. The class's spirit surged. Shiniwei had not anticipated that her scheme would backfire. To prove she was not the one who maliciously framed Lin Jiejia, she bravely took a bite of the apple. That afternoon, all the students of Class 2 were afflicted, including myself, with severe stomach issues. The homeroom teacher, alarmed, promptly called for an ambulance to take us to the hospital. Once the doctor arranged for our stomachs to be pumped, Shiniwei could no longer contain herself and erupted into tears, demanding that her wealthy parents come to reprimand me, the supposed poisoner. I lay pale on the hospital bed, yet felt a sense of satisfaction. In my previous life, I had suffered alone. Now she was experiencing this torment as well. Shiniwei, if I had truly poisoned the apples, would I be foolish enough to eat them myself? Shiniwei clutched her stomach. It was you. You were jealous of my grades and wanted to ensure I couldn't participate in the provincial competition. When my parents arrive, I want to let you off. Although the other students did not believe I had poisoned the apples, they harbored resentment towards me, as I was the one who had distributed them. I sincerely apologized and reassured them. Do not worry, I reported this incident 2 hours ago. The police have apprehended the vendor selling the tainted apples. We will soon have answers. Shiniwei, don't fret. It's quite unnecessary for me, with my 680 points, to envy your 650, don't you think? Shiniwei grimaced in pain but quickly realized something and interjected. You actually called the police? That poor fruit vendor barely makes a living, and you would throw him to the wolves just to evade responsibility. Withdraw your complaint, do you hear me? This time, I didn't need to rebut her. My classmates couldn't help but chime in. Yes. We almost lost our lives, but the vendor lost so much money. The apples were brought to the classroom by the homeroom teacher, and Lin Jiejia distributed them. How could she have had time to poison them? It must have been the vendor's doing. Exactly. How could the homeroom teacher be involved in poisoning? Use your 650-point brain. Before long, under police interrogation, the vendor confessed everything. He revealed that a young girl in a high school uniform had asked him to sell the apples for her, believing he was doing a good deed for a grandmother. He thought he was creating a surprise for the elderly woman. All the apples sold for 1 yuan per pound, but it turned into a nightmare, nearly endangering the lives of over 50 students. Accompanied by the police, the vendor came to the hospital to identify the mastermind. Shiniwei buried her head under the blankets, feigning death. Yet, the vendor immediately recognized her. It's her. The one with the diamond necklace. I thought she was beautiful and kind-hearted, but she ended up plotting to harm others. Shiniwei trembled with rage, but stubbornly denied. Where's the evidence? How can you prove that I instigated you to poison? The police had reviewed the surveillance footage. Strangely, it showed Shiniwei merely carrying the apples, saying nothing. The vendor had taken the initiative to assist her, stating he would help her sell them. Without the crucial piece of evidence, and with the Shun family's influence, Shiniwei evaded legal repercussions, while the vendor was forced to pay a hefty sum. Yet the students were left shivering in fear, as they had experienced the strange phenomenon of hearing voices, but no one would believe them if they spoke out. Eventually, once everyone recovered, we returned to school to complete the remaining exams. 3 days later, the results were announced. I secured the top spot with a score of 698, while Shiniwei, having fallen to the bottom of the class, achieved only over 300 points. With this exam result, the principal felt confident allowing me to participate in the competition. I have indeed lived up to expectations and secured the first prize. The school awarded me 5,000, supplemented by the 2,000 I had saved with my grandmother from collecting trash. At long last, I was able to settle the hospitalization fees owed to the hospital. My mother can now continue her treatment, while I return to school, resolutely focusing on my studies. With the imminent transition to the 3rd year of high school, teachers place great emphasis on academic performance, meticulously analyzing each student's examination papers and providing individualized feedback. On that particular day, I organized my assignments and headed to the office. Upon entering, I was met with a frustrated voice of the mathematics teacher. How could you possibly err on such a simple geometry problem? I have reiterated countless times the necessity of drawing auxiliary lines. And as for trigonometric functions, have you muddled the formulas in your mind? What were you thinking during the exam? Shen Yiwei wore an expression of indifference, yet upon noticing my presence, her demeanor shifted to one of humiliation. She abruptly interjected the teacher's ongoing reprimand. Enough. It was merely one poor performance. Must you dwell on it incessantly? My previous teachers in the capital were Ivy League graduates. Who do you think you are? Blaming me for your inability to teach effectively. It is clear you are simply lazy and unworthy of being an educator. With that, she turned and strode towards me, delivering her ultimatum. This time, you are merely fortunate. Next time, the first place will undoubtedly be mine. Once Shen Yiwei departed, I hastily poured a glass of water for the mathematics teacher, fearing he might succumb to anger. From that day onward, the mathematics teacher ceased to address Shen Yiwei, and he no longer called upon her to answer questions in class. Days passed in relative tranquility. When it was time to collect the class fees, reminiscent of my past life, the class monitor placed a bag containing the funds in the classroom. However, by the afternoon, over 2,000 yuan had mysteriously vanished. The class monitor was in a state of panic, sweat beading on his forehead. Who touched my bag? Everyone looked around in confusion, shaking their heads. The class monitor issued a stark warning. During the last period of physical education when I was absent, whoever took the money, if you return it, I will consider this incident as if it never happened. But if you do not return it, do not blame me for disregarding our camaraderie and reporting this to the authorities. Classmates exchanged uneasy glances. Who could it be? To steal class funds is truly despicable. Someone recalled, didn't TA Senior get expelled for stealing money last year? My goodness, I had always thought our classmates were merely naive, lacking malice. I never imagined that someone would stoop to stealing class funds. I felt utterly embarrassed to be in the same class as such a person. Whoever you are, have some decency and return it. All were youths in the throes of adolescence, valuing their pride above all else and fearing the stigma of being accused of theft. At that moment, Shen Yiwei's inner voice echoed once more. Who else could it be? The one most desperate for money in this class is undoubtedly Lin Jiejia. I just saw her rummaging through the class monitor's bag. But she comes from a poor family. Stealing money could be considered reasonable. Perhaps I should just cover the class fees myself. I only hope she refrains from slandering me in front of the teacher again, causing me to be reprimanded. The expression on my classmates' faces grew grim. On one hand, they had been duped by Shen Yiwei twice. On the other hand, it was true that I was the most impoverished and thus had the strongest motive to steal the money. Many students began whispering among themselves. Who would have thought that the top student would have dirty hands? Even if we report it to the teacher, she is bound to be biased. Why should that be? That was my money. It was indeed our money. Why not just take it back? As the class bell rang, the history teacher, sensing the discord in the classroom, inquired about the commotion. The class monitor reluctantly explained the situation. The history teacher, filled with indignation, declared, poor academic performance can be rectified, but poor character only leads to societal harm, regardless of how much one studies. Today, I will expose the thief. Speak up. Will you confess voluntarily, or shall I search each of you one by one? The prospect of a search drained the color from many faces, especially since several had brought new phones to school. Some boys, in a panic, stood up. I know who the thief is. It's Lin Jiejia. I have seen her collecting trash with her grandmother. Aside from her, no one else would covet that money. Indeed, Shen Yiwei had witnessed it herself, doubtless. The teacher could inquire. Shen Yiwei stood up, feigning inner conflict. Teacher, after all, Lin Jiejia comes from a financially disadvantaged background. Stealing a little money seems reasonable. Perhaps we should let this matter go? Yet her true thoughts betrayed her. The history teacher is truly wise. He is about to uncover the thief. Alas! The money has long been spent by Lin Jiejia. Without evidence, the teacher might end up being accused and risk losing his teaching license. The history teacher could not tolerate dishonesty. He slammed his lesson plan onto my desk. You, with your faulty character, do not deserve to sit in the front row. Go to the back, beside the trash can. Scoundrels should dwell with refuse. You are no longer worthy of being the history class representative. From today forth, Shen Yiwei will take on that role. Everyone should learn from her. Upon hearing I was no longer to be the history class representative, I felt an unexpected surge of joy. Teachers tend to select class representatives based on academic performance, and aside from geography, I excelled in all subjects. Relieved of this burden, I could dedicate more time to my studies. Thus, I stood up, my face alight with enthusiasm. Thank you, teacher. I will move immediately. Who knew how much chalk dust one endures sitting in the front row? The back row, however, was considerably quieter. To my astonishment, the history teacher erupted with fury. What do you mean by that? Do you feel wronged? Who are you putting on a facade for? Yes. The money is indeed not in your possession. You have squandered it all. After 30 years of teaching, to have produced a thief. What a disgrace to society. You must admit today that you are the one who stole the money. 5 minutes had already passed since the bell rang. Any further delay would merely impede the class. The classroom lacked surveillance. Arguing would be futile. I decided to concede. Yes, I stole it. Are you satisfied now, teacher? May we begin class? Our history curriculum is already lagging behind other classes. If we do not continue, will we manage to cover the entire textbook before finals? I swiftly moved my desk to the side of the trash heap, anxious not to waste my classmates' precious study time. The history teacher, infuriated and breathless, nevertheless concluded the lesson in a fit of rage. After class, he still would not relent. Where is the money? It must be returned today. I busied myself distributing homework and preparing my classmates for the next English listening session, not lifting my head as I responded. Tonight, I will have the entire class accompany me to my home to retrieve it. The history teacher scoffed. Fine, let us see just how thick your skin is. I will report this to the principal. Prepare to be expelled. On my way home after school, the history teacher trailed behind, intent on teaching me a lesson. The sunset was splendid, the perfect backdrop for memorizing English vocabulary, thus saving time for math review the following day. As I began reciting words, my classmates exchanged glances, and Shuniwei mocked. Isn't that the top student for you? Maintaining a positive mindset, even after stealing money, she still studies. I feigned ignorance. Thank you for the compliment. After all, I am the top student. Shuniwei, taken aback, promptly fell silent. Soon I halted before a trash dump. My classmates were puzzled. What does this mean? Are you planning to collect trash to repay your debts? Goodness, are you expecting us to join you in rummaging through rubbish? How shameless can you be? The history teacher, filled with indignation at being made a fool, retorted. You dare to mock me? I pointed to a dilapidated thatched cottage beside the garbage mound. I have arrived home. Only then did my classmates divert their gaze from the towering heap of trash to the rickety straw hut, which looked ready to collapse at any moment. This is your home? The class monitor exclaimed in disbelief. Entering, they found 2 broken cardboard boxes serving as beds, with dishes and utensils nearby. The space was even smaller than his bathroom. And the bathroom? The class monitor could not help but ask. I gestured towards the public restroom at the end of the street. It's over there. The class monitor was taken aback. This dilapidated house was at least a kilometer away from the public restroom. If money were to be discussed, it lodged uncomfortably in his throat, rendering him speechless. The history teacher also gaped, his values and conscience engaged in a fierce struggle. The interior of the house was too cramped to accommodate the entire class, forcing the students to circulate in and out like tourists at a scenic spot. However, upon their exit, they all maintained a profound silence. Just then, my grandmother returned, pushing a cart laden with garbage that towered 3 or 4 meters above her. The elderly woman, burdened by a weight 100 times her own, trudged back unsteadily. Upon noticing the circle of students gathered, she curiously inquired, Jejia, what's the matter? I was about to respond when the class monitor hastily covered his mouth. We came to visit your home. Yes, just a visit. The classmates nodded in agreement. The history teacher wore a complex expression but did not intervene. It was my grandmother's first encounter with my classmates, and she joyfully clapped her thighs. So, it's Jejia's friends. I'm sorry for not hosting you well. There's nothing at home. But I'll sell this cart of garbage and buy you a fish at the market. At that moment, the class monitor had completely forgotten about the money. Seeing the pitiful state of Lin Jejia and her grandmother, he would rather make up the difference himself. No, we're not hungry. Yet. His protests were no match for the grandmother's enthusiasm. He could only signal to the boys to help push the cart. 2 strong boys from the class immediately snatched the cart from her hands. We're fine just being here. The grandmother, with tears of gratitude in her eyes, exclaimed. Good children. You're all such good children. Thank you for taking care of Jejia at school. The classmates who had been called good children lowered their heads one by one, feeling a pang of guilt. Despite the absence of evidence to label Lin Jejia as a thief, they had unjustly placed the blame upon her. Many classmates began to waver, voicing their intent to go home. Shen Yue stopped them. You can't leave. Class funds include your contributions. Don't you want them? The students, blocked, retorted angrily. Am I burning money? I don't want it. I can just pay again. Countless voices echoed. It's not much anyway. I'll just pretend I forgot to pay this time. After all, I never paid, right? Exactly. When was class money ever collected? The classmates chimed in. And though the monitor knew they were fabricating excuses, he chose to remain silent. The history teacher hadn't uttered a word since entering. Realizing the situation, I quickly urged everyone inside. Don't leave. Even if you don't want the money, my grandmother's cooking is delicious. Stay for a meal before you go. The classmates I held back seemed on the verge of breaking apart, too timid to meet my gaze. Seizing the opportunity, I rummaged through the cabinets and unearthed a mooncake box. It was the most beautiful box I had salvaged from the garbage heap. Upon opening it, I found it filled with coins, dimes, nickels, 1 yuan and 5 yuan coins, with the largest denomination not exceeding 10 yuan. As I began to count in front of my classmates, it amounted to a mere 562 yuan and 90 cents. I shoved the mooncake box into the monitor's hands. We still need 1,500. I'll search for more. The monitor, as if holding a hot potato, froze in place. No need to look. I believe you didn't steal it. The history teacher, feeling the pressure of the situation, gritted his teeth. I'll cover the 2,000 for you, and if you encounter difficulties in the future, let me know. No more stealing money. I ignored him and dug out another coin from the garbage. Still insufficient, I called upon the Physical Education Committee to search the rat's nest. From the nest, a 10 yuan note emerged. Holding the chewed-up note in class, the committee member slapped himself twice in a fit of shame. I'm just a red egg. Next, it felt like an endless tug-of-war over the money, with me resolutely wanting to give, while the monitor staunchly refused to accept. The history teacher insisted on supporting me. The three parties were locked in a heated dispute. Finally, Shen Yue could no longer contain herself. Just because she's poor doesn't make her deserving of pity. Poverty breeds deceit. Wealth fosters conscience. If we let her off this time, what happens next time? Will she resort to tax evasion or, even worse? You are enabling wrongdoing. The history teacher was also exasperated.
What do you suggest then?
It's evident to anyone with eyes that her family situation is dire. Where would the money come from? Shen Yue smirked, pointing to the red cloth bag resting on the bedside. What about that? It's tightly wrapped. It must be valuable. Perhaps the house was hastily constructed to elicit sympathy. Everyone turned to gaze at the conspicuous red cloth bag in the dim, cramped straw house. I retrieved it and handed it to the monitor. Sure enough, it contained 2,000. Upon hearing 2,000, Shen Yue seized the opportunity to shout, See, I told you. She's just pretending. The class funds are right here, and you all fell for her lies. If it weren't for me, you would have been duped. The monitor opened the bag, confirming the presence of 2,000 yuan, neatly bound with red string. The history teacher lamented, I almost fell for it. Now tell me, where did this money come from? This is your last chance. If you lie, I will call the police. I calmly stated, it's my father's death compensation. Instantly, all noise ceased. The monitor, trembling, unveiled the death certificate and compensation agreement nestled beneath the money. Upon seeing the cause of death listed as a car accident, the history teacher struck his forehead in dismay.
Shen Yue screamed, Impossible.
What other lies are you spinning? Your fabrications are endless. You can even claim your own father is dead as an excuse. Let me tell you, don't think saying this will absolve you of your debt. I absolutely want to pay. Before she could finish, the monitor interjected forcefully. Enough. The class funds were lost by me. He presented the death certificate and compensation agreement to the classmates. This 2,000 yuan compensation is definitely not class funds. You must never again label in as a thief. The classmates, already filled with regret, were all spirited youths with a natural craving for order and justice. Although they usually indulged in their phones, they remained clear-headed in critical moments. When was class money ever collected? I can't recall.
Exactly.
The monitor should organize another collection tomorrow. I'll cover Lynn's class fee. Don't fight me for it, I'll pay. The classmates became increasingly enthusiastic, leaving Shen Yiwei dumbfounded. You're all helping this poor trash lie. There will be consequences. With that, she turned to leave. One by one, the classmates prepared to depart, but before leaving, they suddenly dropped something and pretended to pick it up. Oh dear, how did this 50 yuan come to be here? Lynn, since you're at your home, it must belong to you. Saying this, she forcefully shoved it into my hands. Others followed suit, picking up various amounts, 50, 100. My eyes welled up, and I intended to return the money. There aren't money trees growing here. Where did this money come from? You all take it back. Yet, the classmates dashed away like Shen Yiwei. Under the sunset, countless figures soared freely and joyfully along the road. After everyone had left, the physical education committee remained behind. I'm truly sorry. I wronged you. I secretly brought a new phone to school. The last one was confiscated by the principal. And if the new one gets discovered by the history teacher, my parents would surely break my legs. I didn't intend to frame you. It was all Shen Yiwei's doing. In any case, I'm really sorry. The physical education committee bowed deeply, and I couldn't be bothered to hold a grudge against him. The next day, during the Chinese class taught by the homeroom teacher, he habitually approached my desk to collect assignments, but was surprised to find Shen Yiwei. What are you doing here? Where's Lin Jiejie? I raised my hand from the back row. Teacher, I'm here. The homeroom teacher promptly moved to the back row. Why are you sitting next to the garbage bin? The situation was complicated, and the monitor explained the circumstances, emphasizing that the class funds were likely misplaced by himself, not taken by me. The homeroom teacher immediately called for the history teacher. Do you have evidence proving that Qian is the one who stole from Lin Jiejie? The history teacher's complexion turned pale as he recalled the flattery he had heard from Shen Yiwei the day before, which had led him to believe her words without question.
No.
Then what justification do you have for arbitrarily rearranging student seating, especially next to the trash can? The history teacher grew agitated. It was classmate Zhang Haonan who identified it. Classmate Shen Yiwei witnessed it firsthand. The physical education committee member, Zhang Haonan, nervously shook his head. No, I only heard Shen Yiwei say it. If you don't believe me, ask the whole class. We all heard Shen Yiwei speak. Shen Yiwei was well aware of this, but they had no evidence. As soon as she opened her mouth to respond, she was interrupted by Zhang Haonan. Shut up. I know you're going to say you didn't say anything. You indeed kept your mouth shut, but you've been babbling nonsense in your mind all along. Shen Yiwei's face twisted in anger. At that moment, the class monitor sighed. Although it seemed strange, I truly heard Shen Yiwei say that Lin Jiejie stole the class funds. Yes. She even claimed that Lin Jiejie is poor and had the most motive. Other classmates stepped forward to support him. However, Shen Yiwei refuted. Ridiculous. You all wrongfully accused Lin Jiejie and shifted the blame onto me. If you can prove I said those words, then it's not slander, otherwise. Do you think the police would believe your claims? The classmates were left speechless by her retort. Just as the situation reached a stalemate, the homeroom teacher chuckled lightly. Aren't we investigating who stole the class funds? Why has the conversation suddenly turned philosophical? Such a simple matter could be resolved by checking the surveillance footage. The history teacher shook his head. Didn't the cameras break a while ago? So I replaced them a few days ago and forgot to mention it to you. As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Yiwei's face turned paler than chalk. She muttered in disbelief. It's impossible. Soon, the surveillance footage was retrieved. Under the watchful eyes of the entire class, a familiar figure stealthily approached the class monitor's seat and took the class funds. And that person was someone everyone recognized. Shen Yiwei. Previously, no one suspected Shen Yiwei because her parents were wealthy, with rumors circulating that her monthly allowance reached 6 figures. How could she possibly covet such a meager sum as the class funds? When the students returned from the monitoring room, filled with righteous indignation, Shen Yiwei nonchalantly tossed the money onto the class monitor's desk, feigning calmness. I was just joking. I didn't really take it. Look at how anxious you all are. The class monitor clenched his fists and rushed at her, causing Shen Yiwei to fall from her chair in fright. Yet halfway through, the class monitor pulled back his fist, speaking with disdain. I was just joking too. I didn't really hit you. Look at how anxious you are. Shen Yiwei, feeling wronged, let tears fall. You all bully me. I'm going to have my parents expel all of you. However, The class monitor was not swayed by her tears. I'm also quite curious as to why the daughter of a big shot from Beijing is studying in our little-known southern city, which is neither a provincial capital nor an economic zone. Moreover, your parents haven't shown up even once since school started, have they? Shin Yiwei furiously hurled books at her classmates. Shut up. I am their daughter. I'm just here temporarily for my studies. I will return one day. Once I top the class, my parents will surely come to pick me up. The last statement seemed like a self-encouragement. After this incident, the entire class ostracized her. No one spoke to her, and when the teachers learned about her defiance towards the math teacher, they too felt disheartened. They no longer cared about her academic performance. Shin Yiwei became subdued, no longer causing any disturbances. One day after school, as I was walking home and passing by an internet cafe, a boy with bleached hair called out to me, "Hey, nerd, lend me some money. I'll pay you back tomorrow." That voice was unmistakable, even without turning around. It was the same boy who had harassed me in my previous life. Acting on instinct, I sprinted away before fear could set in, until I heard the boy's scream from behind. "How dare you bully Lin? You've got some nerve to mess with a student from number 1 high school?" I turned around, meeting the eyes of Zhang Haonan from the Physical Education Committee. He stood at attention like a contrite dog. "Lin, don't be afraid. I'll teach him a lesson for you." I knew I should say thank you at that moment, but all that came out was, "Are you sneaking around to play games at the internet cafe without telling your parents again?" The Physical Education Committee member immediately begged for mercy. "My new phone was confiscated again. Please don't tell my parents. I'm begging you." As we conversed, the boy with bleached hair whimpered, "Bro, big brother, my leg is about to break." Zhang Haonan released his grip and kicked the boy once more. "If you dare to bully a student from number 1 high school again, I won't spare you." The boy nodded repeatedly, shouting that he would never dare again. Limping away, witnessing Zhang Haonan's formidable reputation, I quickly struck a deal with him. I would tell his parents that I would tutor him after class, and he would escort me home, giving him a chance to play online. This way, my personal safety was assured. A week later, as the class monitor and others passed by playing basketball in front of the internet cafe, Zhang Haonan quickly donned a mask and hat, crossing his legs to avoid being recognized. From across the street, I prepared to greet the class monitor, but remembered that Zhang Haonan was inconveniently situated. So I hesitated and withdrew my outstretched hand. It looked as if I had been threatened. Just then, Shen Yiwei appeared and, seeing me loitering by the internet cafe, couldn't help but think, Lin Jiejie is clearly flirting with a thug at the internet cafe. Does she expect us to join in as part of her little game? How scandalous. Initially, the classmates remained unmoved, but upon hearing her thoughts, they rushed across the street. Those despicable thugs dare to bully a student from no. 1 high school? Brothers, let's go. Shen Yiwei was left dumbfounded, and I was equally stunned. The former couldn't comprehend why the classmates didn't trust her thoughts, but rushed to rescue me instead. The latter, realizing the situation, I quickly shouted, "Stop. It's Zhang Haonan. He sneaked out to play online, and I'm covering for him." After the classmates halted, I hurriedly helped the bruised Physical Education Committee member to his feet. "Are you alright?" The towering figure, who stood at nearly 6 feet, curled up on my shoulder, sobbing, "I've been wronged." Just then, his parents caught up with him. "Wronged? You should be punished. Sneaking around to play online. You deserve this." The couple dragged Zhang Haonan away by his ear. Under the setting sun, my classmates and I exchanged glances. Once the family's voices faded around the corner, we burst into laughter. No one believed in thoughts anymore, because the youth only believed in righteousness in their hearts. From that day forward, regardless of whether Shen Yiwei spoke or attempted to communicate, no one paid her any heed. In contrast, the principal finally restored the damaged surveillance cameras, revealing Shen Yiwei sneaking into the control room at midnight to delete footage. Simultaneously, they discovered her chat records of purchasing exam answers in advance on a forum. However, the principal said nothing. He merely announced an hour before the monthly exam that the exam papers would be changed. Shen Yiwei's smug smile froze on her face. "Change the test papers?
Why?
What's wrong with the original exam? If it's not troublesome for you, why should it be troublesome for me?" The homeroom teacher cast her a cold glance, as if aware of the truth, and retorted, "What trouble do you have? Since the exam hasn't started, it doesn't matter which version you write. Besides, changing the exam questions is the principal's decision. If you have any objections, Go to the principal's office. Shun Yiwei fumed in indignation but was powerless to reverse the situation. This time, her exam results were even worse than when she had an upset stomach, scoring barely over 200 points. During another speech under the national flag, the principal awarded the first-place student. I ascended the podium once more, this time without any excess thoughts. After stepping down, the principal solemnly announced, "I must inform everyone of a very serious matter. According to the investigation, classmate Shun Yiwei has repeatedly brought her phone onto campus and purchased the unified examination answers for the entire city in advance on a certain forum, constituting cheating, and has disseminated the answers, disrupting the exam order. Additionally, she stole class funds and framed her classmates. The school committee has decided to expel her." The entire school was in an uproar. No one anticipated that the little princess of the Beijing circle could commit such a malicious act. Shun Yiwei was also flustered. She rushed to the podium and openly confronted the principal. "On what grounds? Where is the evidence? Without proof, you are merely slandering me. When my parents find out, do you still wish to retain your position as principal?" However, the principal was not her, and without evidence, he would not speak recklessly. All evidence was archived in the office, and if she wished to see it, she would have to do so herself. As for her parents, if they did not seek him out, he would certainly seek them, wondering how Shen Liangshan could raise a daughter like her. Later, Shun Yiwei's father arrived at the school. His first words were astonishing. "Regardless of how the school chooses to handle this, she is no longer my daughter. I have already found my true daughter, the one the nanny replaced, who happens to be Yiwei's mother. I did not send her back to her hometown, and even paid for her education. That is already a display of excessive benevolence. Now that she has caused trouble, she must bear the consequences herself." Shin Yiwei knelt on the ground, desperately clutching her father's pant leg. "Dad, you are my father. Are you truly going to abandon me because of that conniving vixen? You promised that as long as I studied diligently, repented sincerely, and achieved first place, you would bring me back home." Outside the office, the entire class was holding their breath, realizing that Shun Yiwei was an imposter. It was no wonder she wasn't enjoying herself in the capital and had come to the school. At that moment, Shun Yiwei's inner voice was screaming. It was clearly Shun Anin who fell down the stairs herself. Why should I be blamed? She even poisoned my milk and bullied me at school. It's no surprise she comes from a poor background. She's full of schemes. However, Shun's father pushed her hand away. "Warning. Stop playing your inner voice game. Whether to believe what you say or the facts captured on surveillance, I am well aware." He then apologized to the principal. "I apologize. Is she always capable of making sounds without opening her mouth? Do not believe her. It is all lies. My biological daughter was nearly tortured to death by her. Initially, I was deceived several times. Had I not discovered the truth in the end, I would not have believed such bizarre occurrences existed in this world." The principal, also a victim, sighed. "Indeed, I almost believed it." Before leaving, Shun's father kicked Shun Yiwei away as if discarding garbage. "Achieving first place to bring you back was merely to placate you, fearing you would cling on and not leave. That was just a fabrication. Seeing your face reminds me of being deceived by the nanny for over a decade. Bring you back? In your dreams." After Shin's father departed, the principal had no choice but to call Shun Yiwei's biological mother to come pick her up. Yet, she could not even reach her by phone. Just as he was feeling distressed, I opened the office door. "Principal, since Shun has the extraordinary ability of projecting her inner voice, why not submit her to the state? I believe the nation could use such rare talent." 3 days later, Shun Yiwei, along with her past experiences, vanished from the public eye. A year later, I achieved first place in the province. The school was adored with banners, freely hanging everywhere. The homeroom teacher personally funded a celebration for my advancement. At the banquet, I raised my glass to my classmates. "Thank you for overlooking the noise around us and choosing to believe in me. May we steadfastly uphold our convictions and bravely carve out our own paths, regardless of how loud the clamor of society becomes." The classmates also stood. Amidst the cacophony, justice resides within our hearts. May our futures be grand, bright, and radiant. The end of the story. Thank you for listening, and we shall meet again in the next tale.